surprise to me as they are to you, which I think is the most fun. I hope you're relaxed right now. Before we begin, I hope you don't mind, but I've been having this itch to trace your face. I know it's weird, but do you mind? I've got this little wooden pencil thingamajig, and I just really want to trace your face. Yeah. Around your chin. Down your nose. Just close your eyes. You have very nice eyebrows. Nice. Very nice profile. So, I hope you have been doing well. It's been a while since we last spoke or hung out. Did you make yourself some popcorn? Maybe grab some candy. It's been a long time since I popped some Pop Rocks. I forget how good Pop Rocks taste. It's hard to talk when you have Pop Rocks in your mouth. I saw these in my closet, and I was like, I'm gonna have some Pop Rocks before I read some creepy stories. It's Saturday. So, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Before you continue this video, make sure that you're relaxed, you're in a quiet place, and be prepared to be creeped out. This first story is called Home Alone Story. This happened over a decade ago when I was 12 years old. I live in a small town in Oklahoma, and in my neighborhood, the houses are fairly spread apart, separated by woods. It was a school day, so my grandma picked me up from school and brought me home. This was the first year that I got dropped off at my house alone. Before this, I would just go to my grandma's house after school. I would get dropped off at around 3 p.m. and my parents would be home around 4:30. Not a big deal. Today, for some reason, my dad wasn't going to be home until late, around 7, and my mom, a teacher, wouldn't be home until around 8 p.m. because she had parent-teacher conferences. At the windows that look over my driveway. So, with my mic on and controller in hand, I went to the window to see who it was. Maybe my dad got home earlier than expected. I looked outside. It was a red truck. No one I know drives a red truck. The person pulled into the middle of my driveway sideways, like he owned the place. When I looked out the window, I saw a man with a hat wearing a big camo hoodie and jeans. It was September, so no one should have been wearing a big hoodie and jeans in Oklahoma. By the time I looked, he was already almost out of view, going up my walkway to my front door. I thought maybe it was one of my dad's friends or someone my dad hired to do something, but he would usually tell me if someone was going to be coming over. Soon after, I hear a knock at the door. Then another. I go to my other window that has a better view of the walkway up to my front door. I see the guy walking back down the walkway. I switch and go back to looking through the windows overlooking my driveway. I'm relaying all of this to Seth, still with my mic on. I tell Seth that he's walking back to his truck now. Instead, he walks past his truck and tries to open my garage side door. Oh shit. At this point, my heart sinks. I tell Seth that this guy just tried to get into my house. Mind you, it is literally broad daylight at like 5 p.m. Luckily, it was locked because we sometimes forget to unlock it. After he tried the door, he starts walking back to my patio. I drop my headset and quietly run down the stairs to see what he's doing. I get downstairs and stand behind the wall so I'm not visible from the back door / living room windows. I just listen. I hear him try to open the door. Then I hear a thud. It sounded like he dropped a brick on the ground or something. At this point, I'm more scared than I've ever been. I wanted to call my parents or grandma, but I didn't have a cell phone yet. The only phone in the house was in my kitchen. I would have to cross my living room to get there, and he would be able to see me if I went into there. A few seconds after that thud, I peeked around the corner, and he was gone. Gone. I ran back upstairs and put my headset back on, telling Seth that he just tried to open the back door as well. As I'm telling him this, I hear a car door shut. This time when I look out the window, he finally got in his truck. I looked at the truck closer and I noticed the only thing he has in his truck bed was a crowbar and a shovel. He sat in his truck for what felt like a few minutes. During this time, Seth told me to get my iPod and take a picture of his license plates. Nice thinking, Seth. He was parked to where I couldn't see it. Then he drove backwards out of my driveway and down the road. A few minutes after he was confirmed gone, I went downstairs to see what the thud could have been. I get to the back door and see that the doormat was moved. Both big plant pots had been moved as well. He was looking for a key. Holy fuck. We have a hidden key back there too. The key to the back door was under one of the smaller plant pots on a ledge near the door, not the bigger ones that he had checked under. I went to the front porch and all the pots looked like they had been moved too. I don't know what I would have done if he was able to find the key or if he just broke in. After he left, I called my dad and told him what happened. When my dad got home, he had a cop come over. And I told him what happened and gave him a description. The guy never came back. That is the end of that story, which, in that situation, it's terrifying. That is fucking terrifying. He got really, really lucky that that guy didn't find the key. Somebody commented, scary, sent a shiver down my back. What do you guys think? I mean, if you were in that situation, would you have made your presence known? Or would you have hidden? I think I would have made my presence known, to try and, like, scare the guy away. But, yeah. Let's move on to story number 2. This story has a long title. It's called I can't memorize it. I've only had one encounter with the paranormal, and I'd like to share my experience for the first time, is what it's called. This is something that only me and my mother know. I haven't yet told my wife. I'm getting a bit older now, and I think it's time I shared my experience with the people I have in my life, as well as some curious individuals online. Back in 2012, I graduated from high school. Shortly after, during that summer, my mom and I moved into a new home. Rural Alabama. Lots of trees and lots of peace. I actually really like living rural. I don't really care too much for having a lot of people near me, and I don't very much care to have neighbors either. The first few months of living in that new home, things would get misplaced, or we'd hear the door creak open, or even hear someone call your name. It was very strange, and it only got more strange into 2013. Early 2013, whenever I was alone in the home, I'd randomly pass out. Then it started turning into sleep paralysis. I'd see something, a shadow, which I nicknamed Shadow, because it looked like a shadow. It wasn't anything special, not too tall or short, fat or skinny, just average. No distinct features either, and Shadow always kept a distance from me. Shadow would come into my view during sleep paralysis and then leave. Then I'd regain the ability to move. First we bought carbon monoxide detectors. It was built in the 80s, I believe. No abnormal carbon monoxide. So next I saw a sleep doctor. Again, nothing. My sleep was fine. I even spent a whole month at the time, girlfriend's place. I was fine. My first night back home, Shadow came to visit me, but I started noticing something. Shadow would always walk the same direction, no matter where I fell asleep. Shadow would go towards a specific area of the house. This next moment I remember in very great detail. It was Saturday, September 14th, 2013. At around 9 a.m., I took the dog for a brief walk outside, and suddenly I was feeling a little sleepy. I then heard something over in the woods, and when I looked over, I saw a black figure. I was worried it was a bear, but as I stared at it longer, it was very clearly a shadow. My dog didn't take no mind to Shadow, which is weird because you'd think dogs would bark at the paranormal, right? I rushed the dog back inside. I sat on the couch, took a deep breath, and stopped moving. I couldn't move again. There was Shadow, and Shadow again walked towards the same direction of the house. I had enough of this and decided to go take a look myself. I looked around the area that I thought Shadow would go to, and there was nothing. I wouldn't see Shadow again for the next few days. Same events as usual. Then on October 7th, Monday evening, I was parking the car and decided that maybe I didn't check the right part of the house. The house had a cellar, but we never went in. I remember my mom said she saw a giant snake skin and was too afraid to go any deeper than the door area. So, of course, I wrapped myself up in extra layers of clothing despite it nearly being 70 to 80 degrees and high humidity because I didn't want to get bitten by a snake. I grabbed a flashlight and checked out the cellar. The cellar was made entirely of bricks, whitish gray color, lots of dirt. There was no floor. I'm very confident that they didn't follow building codes, but it was rural Alabama after all. At least there were floor joists course, the cellar was full of rooms, but this one was a bit smaller looking. Doing some detective work, I realized this was the area Shadow would walk to in the house, so maybe Shadow was telling me to check out this room. So I slowly went over there, peeked in slowly, and nothing important at first glance. It looked like someone was using it as storage. There were boxes, I think 5 or 6 to medium-sized boxes. I took them all out of the cellar and went through them. Lots of random decorated items, some toys, clothes, and of course books. Mostly just random things. Dictionary, biology book. But one thing did stick out that was different. There was a journal. Well, more precisely, it was a diary from 1985. Lots of teenage drama in it. Parents mad that the teen snuck out of the house and went to Huntsville with friends to go see Kiss perform. Good band. There was some funny stuff in the diary, but what really took me by surprise was how the diary ended. At the end, the diary mentioned that Mom had passed away a few months ago, and that they were finally moving out. That was it. When I went back inside, I asked out loud to Shadow if they used to live here, and had a daughter that was rebellious and wanted to go see Kiss. I waited for sleep paralysis to kick in, waited about an hour, then I realized nothing was going to happen. Nothing happened for the rest of that year. March 7th, 2014, I got home late. It was a bad day. Me and my, at the time, girlfriend broke up. I was struggling in college and was debating on dropping out, which I did stop going for a while. But that Friday night, I would see Shadow for the very last time. I crashed on the couch, heard a noise, and then sleep paralysis kicked in. I saw Shadow over at the dining area. I watched Shadow walk over to the dresser of random items we put in, and the dresser opened up. Shadow walked away. I was able to move again. Of course, what was the first time there? The diary. I decided I would reunite the diary and this person, so I looked her up on Facebook. I found her Facebook. She passed away in 2009. I got in contact with her son and said that I found her diary from her teenage years. We met up and he told me the things I found belonged to his mom. She passed away in the house we were living in. She had a brain aneurysm. He asked if he could have them. Of course, I said yes. After that, I went home. I never passed out again or ever had sleep paralysis. I never saw Shadow ever again. Things stopped being misplaced. No more doors opening and closing. No more whispers or hearing our names being called. That was it. The person lived in the house as a teenager. Her mom died and then they moved out. She bought the house and lived in it with her husband and son until she passed away. I do not know if Shadow was the owner of the diary, or if Shadow was the mom trying to have her daughter's belongings returned to her son. Funny how there is still a mystery to the story. But that was my paranormal experience, and here we are in 2024. I've never had a paranormal experience ever since. No ghosts, no shadows, no orbs, nothing I couldn't explain. I don't live there anymore, neither does my mom. She never saw Shadow, but she did experience her own fair share of strange things in that house. Up until Shadow went away. Thank you for taking the time to read this. I sometimes think back to these experiences and it fills me with hope about the future and what we will experience after this life is gone. And that is the end of that story, which was very well written. It was detailed enough to where I could picture it clearly, and very interesting experience. Somebody said in the comments, I also live in rural Alabama and had sleep paralysis and met a black shadow in the shape of a man. So this is wild because it was also accompanied by objects moving downstairs. It was when I began to pray in my house. I am a woman, and this happened in 2014. Interesting. I've never experienced sleep paralysis before. It sounds terrifying, though, not being able to move, seeing shadows out of the corner of your eye. I read this one story where sleep paralysis was theorized to be a woman crouched on your chest. I forgot what it was. Was she hoping to, eat your soul? Something like that. Some people would have, a woman crouched on their chests. They would get that sensation and see, the shadow of a woman. That's kind of cool, though, that there seems to be some kind of closure. You return the item, and then the spirit moved on. This story is called He Lived in My House, ... For a bit of context, this happened about 2 years ago, a few weeks after my little brother was born. Ever since we moved into this house, there's been this small room in the basement that's always locked. To show you how little anyone uses it, I don't even know what's in there, but I've always assumed it's just utility stuff like meters or something. The room is really tiny, barely big enough to lie down in. Now, let's get into it. My parents went away for a weekend together, leaving me, my older sister, and my baby brother, who was just a few weeks old at the time, at the house. My grandparents trusted us to take care of ourselves since they'd done this before. Anyway, that night, my sister went out with friends and wasn't planning to come back until 4 or 5 in the morning. I watched a good movie, and since it was already getting late, I decided to put my little brother to bed in his room upstairs. I did that and came back down to watch another movie, but I ended up falling asleep. About 2 or 3 hours later, around midnight, I woke up to these strange noises coming from upstairs. Oh my god, the baby. At first, I thought it was just the neighbors since they can be pretty loud and the walls are thin, but then I looked at the time and realized it was too late for them to still be awake, let alone making that kind of noise. So I got closer to the stairs to investigate, and just as I was about to go up the first step, I heard the sound of something metal falling on the ground. Guess what? It was the key to the small room in the basement. I immediately grabbed my phone, and instead of calling the police, I texted my friends to tell them what was happening. One of my friends had the brilliant idea of calling the police for me. Suddenly, I heard the bathroom door slam shut. I knew it was that door because it makes a very specific creaky noise when it does. I remembered my brother was sleeping upstairs, so I carefully went up to check if he was okay. Thankfully, he was fine. Still not fully grasping how much danger I was in, I went to the bathroom door. Since it opens inward, I decided to violently push it open, and I heard a man scream. I immediately shut the door and held it closed to keep him from getting out. He broke the window, and outside the bathroom there's this sort of balcony, not a proper one, but you get the idea, that connects to the balconies of the neighboring houses, which are all really close together. He used that to escape. I grabbed my brother in my arms and ran to the kitchen, and noticed that one of the knives was missing from the knife block. I picked up another knife and crouched in a corner of the living room, crying like never before. The police arrived, and I opened the door for them. When they searched the house, they confirmed that the bathroom window was broken, and I had hit the guy so hard that there was blood on the floor. Oh shit. But the most shocking and traumatizing part was what they found in that small basement room. There were blankets and cans of food. They concluded that he had been living there for several days. That's it. I hesitated a lot before posting this because it really affected sorry if the story isn't super clear. Some of the details are still jumbled in my head. Anyway, I hope you found it interesting. And that's the end of that story. That's my worst fear. A burglar. That's crazy. That is so crazy. But he made him bleed from opening the door so hard. I wonder, like, if that guy was house hopping, you know, just living in house after house without the owners knowing. So strange. Well, it's a good thing this guy wasn't hurt. Somebody said these squatters are unhinged nowadays. I hope your family recovered from this. I also feel kind of bad for the squatter, honestly. I mean, a person that doesn't have a home. That's pretty sad. Sad to live through. Okay, next and last story. This story, I think, may be about a store that I don't really like that much. But we'll see. It's called A Burlington Haunting. Dyer Street in El Paso has a history of violence, drugs, sex, and death. Ask anyone in El Paso about Dyer, and I guarantee they have a story about the Devil's Triangle or the Econo Lodge. So it makes sense that the store I work at is most likely haunted. I work at Burlington, but it wasn't always a Burlington. It used to be a big Kmart till they closed it down in 2017 and opened up a strip mall there. All the people that have been there since it opened in 2022 have stories of stuff falling over and footsteps being heard, but I chalked it up to the building settling or something, being off balance and falling. It wasn't until last week when I started to think otherwise. So, I'm closing on Black Friday. How old is this story? This story is 3 days old. Black Friday just happened. So, I'm closing on Black Friday, which for Burlington isn't a big deal because we don't have any sales. I mean, come on, it's already a discount store. Regardless of that info, though, the store was still packed to the gills with people doing their early Christmas shopping. It's a little past 8 p.m. and I'm helping a family take one of those little vehicles that kids can ride around to their truck. When I walk back in the store, I get a call on the radio that one of the closed-off fitting rooms has been opened. Now, that thing is locked up good, so I'm thinking some kids must have been yanking the doorknob or pushing down on it and broke it. When I go to check it out, the doorknob is fine and no one is inside. I lock it back up and go back to helping out up front. About 20 minutes later, I hear something fall behind me. I look back and see that a Santa Claus lawn statue has fallen over. I didn't think anything of it when I picked it up. When I set it back in place, a stuffed snowman which was sitting on the top shelf fell in front of me and set off the touch lights we had on the jewelry. I stepped back and to see if anyone had bumped into the shelves, but it was just me right there. I was a little freaked out at this point and took a couple steps away from the shelf. That's when the lights on the jewelry started flashing on. Now these lights don't turn on unless you tap the boxes the jewelry is in. They blink a few times at random, then stop completely. Before I can process what I'm seeing, the doors behind me, which are automatic doors, start to open and close without anyone walking by them. They open and close 3 times before it all stops. No more blinking lights, doors are acting normally, and nothing is falling over anymore. I tell my supervisor about it when she walks by and she says, "Oh, it must be the Kmart ghost again," and walks away with a light giggle. Nothing else happened the rest of the night, but every night I've worked since, something has fallen over without anyone around, and my other coworkers have said they've heard noises in the closed-off fitting rooms. That's a good story. That's the end of that ghost story. That's, being in that situation would feel like the beginning of a horror movie. the shelf. You put it back, then something else falls off the shelf. Then the lights start going off. Then the doors start opening and closing. Pretty creepy. It only has one comment. It says, "That is so bone-chilling." And they are correct. That's very cool. It's a cool story. Alright guys, those are the 4 stories that I picked for